So are you wondering who actually does a speech at your wedding? What should they actually do? And what order does it happen in? Don't stress, because I've got the answers for you here.
Hello lovely brides and welcome back to my channel. I'm Lauren, wedding planner and owner of Bluebird Creative. If you haven't already, then make sure you subscribe to my channel, hit the bell, and you'll be notified every week when a new video lands.
So first of all, let's start off with who. So traditionally, speeches would go in the following order. You would have the father of the bride, then the groom, and then on to the best man. Now, as we know, things don't always follow tradition nowadays. So variations on that might be that the mother of the bride wants to do a speech, the bride herself may want to do a speech, the maid of honour may want to do a speech, you may even have a guest that wants to do a speech. There are no rules, but I'm just going to go through what tends to happen on a normal basis, if normal is even a thing anymore. Okay, so traditionally, wedding speeches were done after the wedding breakfast, but you can kind of make up your own timings now. So you need to have a think about the people involved in your speeches and what suits the structure of your day best. So if you are going with the traditional father of the bride, groom and best man, perhaps speak to them about how comfortable they actually feel about public speaking. Is there one best man? Are there two best men? Does the father of the bride actually want to do a speech? And if he's really, really nervous but wants to do it, then you need to consider all these different factors. So here are a couple of different options for you. Now, if you don't want to go for everybody at the end, you may decide to put everybody before the meal. The reason behind this might be that actually everybody's pretty nervous and they'd rather just get it over and done with as such. I'm sure it means a lot to them, but then perhaps not confident speakers, and they'd rather then do that and then they can sit and enjoy the meal instead of not being able to enjoy the meal because they're getting so nervous about the prospect of having to speak afterwards. At my own wedding, for example, we got my dad to speak before the meal because he was really nervous and wasn't really into public speaking. Then he could actually sit down and enjoy the rest of the meal. Something to also consider is, again, if somebody perhaps wants to have a couple of drinks with their meal, it might be better they speak before the meal. It's totally up to you. You may decide to split people's speeches up. Not people per se, but the speeches up, sorry. So as I said, my dad spoke before the meal, but the groom and the best man, my husband, spoke at the end of the meal. You may decide to do a speech in between each course. There are lots of options, as always, so just work out what works best for you and the people speaking, because you want them to feel comfortable and you want them to do a comfortable as possible speech for you and your guests. Okay, so let's talk about timings of speeches. I would say 90% of weddings that end up running late, it's because of the speeches. Now, ideally, you don't want your speeches to go on longer than, say, 30 to 40 minutes. Your guests are going to start to get a little bit bored. It's just a bit too much once it starts getting past that point. So the best thing to do is have a chat with each of the people that are doing speeches. Request that their speech not be longer than 10 minutes. That is a perfect amount of time for them to get across what it is that they want to share with everybody. It means that there's then usually not too many sort of personal or inside jokes that leave your guests wondering what they're talking about, or they're not really connected to the speech. Usually it's then more emotional and it leaves everybody happy, and there's no thoughts after the speech of, oh gosh, that went on for such a long time. It also means that your schedule for the day, wedding planner, sticks to the time, which is really important for all your suppliers as well. And you don't want to leave your evening guests, if you're having evening guests, waiting, stood in a room with not much going on because everybody's still in the other room waiting for the speeches to finish. So definitely have a chat with people, give them around the 10 to 15 minute guideline and hope that they stick to it. A couple of other things to consider if your speeches are running over time. If you're having your speeches before the meal and there was a set timing, you don't want the food to be lukewarm because the speeches have gone on for another 30 minutes. If you're having the speeches at the end of the meal and your room has a turnaround, you don't want to leave the DJ outside waiting for ages when he then has to come in and set up in the turnaround, and then you've got guests waiting again. It can become a bit of a nightmare. So Try not to make that happen. Speeches are the one thing that mess the timings up. The timings don't have to be messed up, but if they are, it's always the speeches because they're a bit of an unknown quantity. You don't have massive control over how people speak for, but just give them a good guideline of how long it really needs to be and perhaps remind them of some of the consequences.